I'm going to teach you how to get all of the data for the Lobbyist Tracker Project that will eventually make the U.S. Tobacco Lobbyist and Lobbying Firm Registration Tracker, which is displayed on ASH's website. You can find it by going to tobaccomoney.com or under the solution and hit U.S. Tobacco Lobbyist Tracker. So before we get started, I'm going to be working off of this Lobbyist Tracker Project instruction sheet that is available to you, so feel free to follow along there. So the goal of this research is to identify as many individual tobacco industry lobbyists as possible. And so there's a few caveats to this and a couple things I want to highlight before we get started in the research. First, in 2021, for 13 states and DC, it was impossible to identify only tobacco industry lobbyist names. And so that's the reason that we also include firms, and sometimes these firms had to be recorded in the place of names. And so this is super important. Only record lobbying firms when the individual tobacco industry lobbyist names are not available in that state. If there is a firm name and a lobbyist name that's available for just one registration, be sure only to use the lobbyist name and not list the firm. We don't want to double count a firm and a lobbyist. If there's two separate registrations where there's a lobbyist name and then a firm name, then you can record both the separate registrations. You'll record them both, but that's because there's multiple registrations. Which brings me to my next point. If we go to the tracker, we're going to be using Colorado today as our example. So let's go to the Colorado state page. You're going to notice there are two different statistics that we're recording. In yellow, there's the total number of tobacco lobbyists and lobbying firms. And in blue, there's the total number of tobacco lobbyist and lobbying firm registrations. So here's a good example. If we're looking at, in Colorado, they have both lobbyists and lobbying firms. So if we're looking at the second table that shows the number of firms, you're going to see that this firm, Hicks and Associates, lobbies for both General Cigar, and they're also employed by Swedish Match. And so this is just one single lobbying firm. That means that there's only really, that's just one firm in a state. You aren't going to count it as two separate firms. And so that's where that yellow number comes in. So the total number of actual lobbyists and the total number of actual firms is 33 for Colorado. But they are registered twice. And it's important that we capture these two registrations because you don't want to undersell either Swedish Match or General Cigar. Because Swedish Match is still employing this lobbyist. They're doing more work than they would be doing if they were only working for General Cigar. So it's really important that we capture this. That's why we record registrations in blue. So you'll notice we marked with an X under Swedish Match and a 1 under General Cigar. As a rule of thumb, be sure when you're marking and choosing which is the X and which is the 1, we always choose the leftmost side of the table. Any company on the leftmost side gets the 1. Any company on the right side gets the X. This is both for consistency and because at the end, we're able to figure out the total number of actual lobbyists that there are for Altria, Reynolds, American, and Juul, which are some of the bigger companies, so it's important to keep this consistent. So make sure you're always putting on the leftmost side that 1 and on the right side the X if they are having multiple employers. And so you'll notice here in this formula, when we count total registrations, there's a 1 here where the total number of actual lobbyists is 0. So you get 1 extra firm, which means that right here, you're going to have 34 lobbyist and lobbying firm registrations, even though there's only 33 individual tobacco lobbyists and lobbying firms. This is a super important concept. It happens quite frequently in multiple states for both lobbyists and lobbying firms, so it's super important that you understand this. You're going to go to state tracking, and this should bring up all of last year's states. And we're going to use Colorado as our example today. And so you're just going to click the Colorado Google Sheets spreadsheet. You're going to right click, and then you can duplicate or make a copy. And once you get this copy, make sure to rename it. So you're going to click on it, and you can just call it Colorado Tobacco Lobbyist and Lobbying Firm Registration lobbyist lobbying firms. So you can just call it Colorado Tobacco Lobbyists and Lobbying Firms right here. And maybe it's 2022, so maybe add the year. All right, and so this is last year's. Before we get started, it's really important to take a look at how this is formatted. You're going to notice that all this is having wrapped text. We have the nice alternating lines. All of the text is going to be in uppercase. And so as you're recording all of the research, it's going to get a little bit messy. But when we finish, you're going to go back and we're going to reformat, and we'll touch on that at the end of this video. So you'll notice for Colorado that it contains both registered lobbying firms and registered lobbyists. That indicates to me that as I'm going to go through this research, I'm likely going to have some firms listed instead of individual lobbyist names. So now that I've kind of done these observations, I'm going to go through and I'm just going to delete all of the existing data because we're not going to use that. This is old, it's from last year. All right, and now we're ready to go. So now you have this spreadsheet set up. The other thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up the 2021 Combined Registrations Tracker, and this will be available for future years. And as discussed earlier, we track registrations and we track individual lobbyists and lobbying firms. This is the sheet that tracks registrations, and it's what's going to be actually used this data on the ASH tracker. There is another sheet, however, that we're going to use, and it's also important. This is for internal use only. And you're going to find it right here. It's just called the Combined State Tracker. So let's open that up as well. This is going to give us the actual number of individual lobbyists or lobbying firms that are employed by a specific company. And it's really important because this is what's going to be on the individual state pages in addition to all the registrations. So it's important that we also record it here, and it can be used for finding some overall statistics at the end. So we also like to track this. So you have these 3 pages up: the Combined State Tracker, the registrations tracker, and then you also have your new page for the specific state, in this case for Colorado. And now you're ready to go and get started actually doing the research. Now to actually get to the state page where you're going to access their records for your research. If you go to the registrations page here, and we're doing Colorado, scroll all the way to the right, and here we have the link to the Colorado site that we've used in the past. If you can't find this link or it doesn't work, I'd recommend just searching Colorado lobbyist registrations and you should be able to find something. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can get this information that we're looking for. So if we're on the main page for Colorado, most states only have this option, which is search by client. So sometimes it's searched by client, sometimes it's searched by employer, sometimes it says search by principal. You want to be searching by this because we don't actually know the names of the specific lobbyist or lobbying firm that represents the tobacco industry, but we do know the names of tobacco companies. So this is the first way. It's a little more time consuming than the other way I'm about to show you. But for most states, this is the only option. And so this will allow us to do our searching. Here you would type the name, and here you can select a reporting year. And I'd like to emphasize every state page looks different, so it might require a little bit of exploring and trial and error until you figure out the best way to search on that state page. I'm going to go back to that main page though, because I'm going to show you the second way to search, which if possible for that state, it's a lot easier. I know California does this, Colorado does this, some other states do it as well. If there's a spot that says directories, you're going to want to search by client again. So client lobbyist directory, you click on that. And this brings up either a PDF like this one, or sometimes it'll bring up an Excel sheet of all the different lobbyist clients and lobbyists. So you'll see here, they give us a really easy way to interpret this. There's client on this side, lobbyist on this side. And just for an example, before we get into actually how to do the research, say we want to know about Altria. You can go Control F or Command F, search Altria. And right here, Altria Client Services and its affiliates, that's the client, which is Altria. And then these are all the lobbyists that are registered to lobby for Altria. And here there might be more than one, so make sure you actually scroll through these. This is going to show you the lobbying firm. Valdez Public Affairs LLC, it's obviously not a name, it's listed separately. It's likely the lobbying firm, and that is the case here. But if you have any questions about any of these people, you want to know more information or any of these firms, I definitely recommend using the search by client feature. But so those are two ways that you can search. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to search using this feature, although it's a little bit more difficult, just to show you how you would do the search in most states. But if you can do that, Control F and get a PDF or Excel sheet of all the lobbyists, I highly recommend doing that. It's definitely the fastest and easiest way, and the way you can do it with the least mistakes. I recommend keeping the Lobbyist Tracker Project instructions up right next to you so you have a nice list to go over. So what you're going to do is we're going to start at the top of the list, and you're going to search all of these keywords. So you'll notice I've done this before, but you search Altria. It's our first keyword. And some states let you filter by reporting year. This is super important that you consider reporting year, even if it doesn't let you filter when you're looking at your results, because we only want the lobbyists that are currently and actively lobbying. If it says terminated, if it says from a different year, make sure you're not recording and reporting those people. Luckily, Colorado lets us search by reporting year, so we don't have to worry about this. Then you're going to hit the search button. And if there is results for Altria, it should pop up right away. It found 9 records here. And what we want to do, it's super important that you're not just retyping, you want to copy and paste records. So this first person, Amber Valdez, is a lobbyist. You're going to copy and then go into your state tracking page and paste their name. Now that we've pasted their name, you also want to indicate which tobacco company they lobby for. In this case, it's Altria, and I indicate this with a 1. Then you're going to keep going, so we're going to go back to that page. Now we see Valdez Public Affairs, and I want to pause here for a second. You're going to notice there's 2 Valdezes. They're both lobbying for the same client. There's a high likelihood that it could be the same person. And that's why it becomes really important, especially as you first start on a specific state, to actually click on these links. So we're going to click on these and see what information we can find and make sure that we're really actually supposed to be recording both this person and the firm, or if I really should only be recording Amber Valdez. So this is the lobbyist summary for Amber. You'll notice this is her name. She is working for Valdez Public Affairs as we thought, but she is registered as an individual lobbyist. This is her lobbyist ID. Now we look at Valdez Public Affairs, and Amber is the person who registered Valdez Public Affairs, but it has a different registration ID, and there are likely other lobbyists working for this lobbying firm other than Amber. And for that reason, since there's 2 separate registrations, as you can tell by the different lobbyist IDs, the different information on each of these, you can also note that these should be recorded separately. So I'm also going to record Valdez Public Affairs as a firm. So I'll scroll into the firm table, paste it, and then put a 1 under Altria. And you'll notice that sometimes the formatting gets messed up. Don't worry about it. We'll come back to it at the end, so no big deal there. And then you're just going to continue doing this. Another thing I want to note is as you're clicking on pages, especially when you click on a firm like we did here, you're going to want to look for any other names. So all we see is Amber's name. We already recorded her, so we aren't going to do that again. I wouldn't want, if I didn't see Amber's name on this page, for example, if she wasn't listed here, but I click on Valdez Public Affairs, and it's her name and like a bunch of other names, and it's somewhere clearly states lobbyists working for Altria Client Services LLC, then you would definitely want to record those lobbyist names, and you wouldn't be recording that initial Valdez Public Affairs. But since this is a separate lobbyist registration, then the other one, we want to make sure we're recording both. And we couldn't find any other specific lobbyists for this lobbying firm. So that's why it was recorded the way it was. So now if we go back, we're going to continue. I would copy this person, Amanda Klump. I think that they're just a person, it's not a firm, but I'm going to click to double check, and you'll notice there isn't anywhere that says that it's a firm. It says it's her, she's just an actual person. So again, we go back to our Colorado page, we're going to paste it, and she lobbies for Altria. So there we go. And you're just going to keep doing that. Say I finished for Altria, and I'm going to go back and do another search. I go back to the search page, and I'm going to move on to Philip Morris, which is the next one in this list. So the research is going really well for me. I've been going through that list, and I'm now on Swedish Match. So I'm going to go back to Colorado. I look up Swedish 2021 search. And now I'm going to pause and notice something. If we go back to our Colorado sheet, I've already recorded Hicks and Associates for General Cigar. They already came up in my search when I searched General Cigar, but now I'm on Swedish Match and I see the same firm again. I'm clicking on it, it's definitely the same one. You can compare to when I looked up the other one if you would like, but I'm remembering it's the same exact one. So that's our scenario. So now what you're going to do is go back to Colorado, to our state page, and we don't want to put a 1 here, because if I put a 1 here, you're going to notice that in yellow, my total number of firms goes up. But there's still only 7 firms here, so I shouldn't be having 8. So what we do instead is you're going to do a capital X. And now you should notice that down here, the total number of registrations is 1, but firms is 0. And this tells us that there are 8 registrations across 7 different firms. So 8 total registrations across 7 different firms for the tobacco industry. And if I were to record this separately, say I found Swedish Match first and then General Cigar, for example, this would be incorrect. And the reason it's incorrect, we always want to put the number 1 and allot that on the leftmost side, or the leftmost company on our table. We do this because we really want to get accurate totals, especially for Altria, Reynolds, American, and Juul, because at the end we can actually get an actual number for the total number of lobbyists that they employ. But as we get further to the right, this yellow total number of lobbyists and lobbying firms becomes less and less accurate. So it's super important that it looks like this. And also, it just stays consistent. We want to maintain consistency throughout the whole table. So it's super important, again, that you make sure that this X is on the rightmost column on the table. I'm searching smoke now. We search like this so that we can get smoking, smokers, smoke, anything like that. So we're going to search smoke, 2021, search. And now you're going to notice, especially when we search things like smoke, vape, vapor, etc., there's going to be a lot of items that are not listed on our table. So it's really important that we double check and make sure that these are actual lobbyists for the tobacco industry and that they're not lobbying as tobacco control advocates. When something says smoke-free, it often trips people up. They think that that's going to be an advocate for tobacco control, which a lot of times is not the case. So we're going to highlight, I'm just going to choose this one just because I know this one trips people up a lot. We're going to copy it, and we're just going to do a Google search. And right away, we don't even have to click on this, and we see it represents small business owners and manufacturers in the vaping industry. So that's the tobacco industry. If you want to get more detail, you can click on it for vapor businesses. So that's clearly part of the tobacco industry. So we would definitely want to record this as well in others. So to do that, we're going to go back to our ASH specific tobacco industry lobbyist and lobbying firm page. I've actually already recorded this one. You'll see it's right here. You're going to copy and paste the name. So if I hadn't done it, I just paste it. And then you're going to put a number, and this is in the other column. This is just for tabulating. And again, if this was the second one, say that this firm Collective Strategies also lobbied for Juul, there would be a 1 under Juul, and then we would put an X under other. But that's not the case, so we're going to leave it as is. Say I finished going through the instructions, I finished searching all of these keywords. I'm on my ASH Colorado State page. I have all the information in that I'm going to be able to find. Now what you want to do is make sure that you have a record of all this information. So if I were in another state page and besides Colorado, what I would do is I would just take a screenshot of all of this information for every single search I did. This can be done after every single search, and it's just to record that you actually found these lobbyists or lobbying firms. But in states like Colorado, and lots of other states do this as well, if you go to the lobbyist main page, and like I showed you earlier, that client lobbyist directory, you can just save this PDF or save the Excel sheet, and all you do is just download it to your computer, and then if you could upload it to the state specific folder. So you would just upload it to this folder and you're done. So that takes care of the research side of things, but now let's get into formatting. You'll notice I already formatted this top table with the lobbyist information. All of the words, nothing's cut off. All of the words are capitalized with all the capitalized characters, and the data makes a stair-like structure, so it's really easy to read. I also made sure over here is capitalized, and in addition, I double checked the formulas. So the formulas are, this one's correctly summing, and this one's correctly counting all of the data that we want. So I've double checked all of this. I checked these formulas as well. It's doing what they're supposed to do. And so I know that that part's set. So I'm going to show you how to make this bottom table formatted like this. The first thing I'm going to do, because I think it's a lot easier, is I like to resize these. So you're going to right click, resize rows, fit to data. This is already fit to data, so that's awesome. We don't have to do anything there. The next thing you want to do is wrap the text. So format, wrapping, wrap. Now we can actually read what we've written and copied. Now we want to make everything capital. And the way I did this was I actually added an extension. It can be found by going to extensions, then hit add-ons, get add-ons, and you're going to search for change case. Since I already have it here, once you have the extension, I get change case, and I want it to be all uppercase. So I'm going to highlight all of these words, extensions, change case, all uppercase. And this is just a really quick shortcut to making everything uppercase that you need. Also, don't forget to check out the other column and do the same thing there. It's easy to forget that one, so always double check that you're making that uppercase as well. Great. So now you'll notice the lines are weird. In these rows and this title row, we're going to have all of the borders available, but here we only want the vertical ones and then the outline of this whole box. So I click borders, and I usually click clear borders just to start, and then I'm going to outline the whole box, and then I also want to do only vertical borders. And that gets us the borders that we want. Now, while we're doing this, we also want that alternating colors. So you're going to hit Format, Alternating Colors. I don't use a header. The first color should be the darker color. It's this gray-blue, like gray 1. The second color, we use a standard white. And now you'll notice this looks really good. There's one more thing we have to do. We want to make that stair step structure. So it looks like these two are out of line. They should be at the top. And now that looks great. Also, you'll notice that we do this by the ones, not the X's. So this one is in the correct position right now. If I moved Hicks and Associates down to here, that's not correct. That looks a little funky. So we're going to leave it just like that. And now you have all of the formatting correct and you're ready to take this information and put it in your table. And again, be sure to double check these formulas. It should be summing in the yellow, and then you want to use the count A formula for the blue sections. And they should be all the way across. If you have to change a formula, a really quick tip is you can just drag all the way across and it'll bring the formulas all the way across for you. So you don't have to retype it in every single box. Double check these as well. It's summing both of these perfect. And then in the top, you want to double check that these are the correct sums. So it's these two yellow boxes. It should be this box as well. And then the other one's the two blue boxes. And there you have it. You have all the data correct. And now we're ready to put this into our combined state tracker table and our combined registrations table. All right, so this step is to update the combined state tracker page, which is this page, and the registrations combined state tracker page, which is this one. So we finished formatting. You can see this top table again is the lobbyist representing the tobacco industry. And we're going to start on the combined state tracker page. This page only tracks the actual number of tobacco lobbyists and lobbying firms. So what we're going to do, this first column is Altria, and there's 8 lobbyists for Altria in Colorado. So I'm going to go to the combined state tracker page, find Colorado, and I'm going to type in 8 under lobbyists. I'm going to do this for all the lobbyists, and all, as you'll notice, they're all in black here. And I'm going to type in the number of lobbyists for each different company and in other. Once I finish doing that for Colorado, I'm going to move on to the firms. So scroll down to the firm table. Again, it's in yellow, and I'm going to list the numbers for all the firms. So say I'm on Swisher International, that's 1. So I'm going to go to the combined state tracker, Colorado. For firms under Swisher International, which is right here, it's going to be 1. And so I type a 1 here. And now we're going to double check. This says that for total, there are 33 lobbyists and lobbying firms. If we go back to the Colorado page, up in yellow at the top, there's a total of 33. So that means that we entered the data correctly. Nice job. You can move on to the registrations page. For the registrations page, we record the total number of registrations, which is all the data in blue. So we're going to do the same thing we did the combined state tracker page, but for registrations this time. So this first column we know is Altria. There are 8 registrations for Altria. So go to this registrations page, find Colorado. Under lobbyists, there are 8 individual lobbyist registrations. Once I finish all the registrations, so the next one, this column's Reynolds American, there's 4 registrations. I go over here, Reynolds American lobbyists, there's 4 lobbyist registrations. Then once I finish all of that, I've gone all the way across this row, I'm going to go into firms. And let's say I'm on this row. I'm on Swedish Match. I've done all of these. I'm already on Swedish Match. And there's 1 lobbying firm for Swedish Match. I'm going to go into the registrations. I'm going to find Swedish Match, and the firms are indicated in red, just like on the combined state tracker, and I'm going to make sure there's 1. And then the total is 34. Once I've entered all of the information for all the firms and all the lobbyists, there are 34 total registrations. If I go back here, I scroll all the way to the top in blue, this says 34, our numbers match, which means we did it correctly. The last thing you have to do is update this date accessed. So you're just going to go over here, type in the date that you accessed all this information, which for Colorado, the day I did this was October 20th. So I'm going to leave it at October 20th, 2021. And I'm going to do the same thing on the combined tracker. This can also be checked if you forget to do this in the editing history, in the version history. You go File, and view version history, and you can see the dates and when the last edits were made. Congratulations, you have finished the initial research process. Now you're going to move on to reviewing the research. And this is going to be a second person. So within a week of completing this initial research, the primary researcher has to indicate to the secondary researcher for this specific state that they finished and it needs to be reviewed. It's really important that you completely repeat all of the steps as you're reviewing the research. You're going to redo this whole thing again, redo the whole search, and make sure that there aren't any discrepancies in the initial research. If there are any, make a note of them and then make sure you follow up with that state's lead researcher to confirm any of these changes and any additional modifications that you may make to that specific state page. Also, when you're reviewing, ensure that the registrations combined page, the combined state tracker page, and then also that specific state page. I just have the sample one linked here, but we just did Colorado, so you would want to make sure the Colorado state page is completely updated with all of these changes. Once this review is complete, please share a link for the completed state with Doug, and Doug will be able to review them, give you feedback pretty quickly so you know what to incorporate in the research going forward. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to actually put all of this information onto the ASH website. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for listening.